Welcome to our deep dive into Japanese mythology.
Mm.
You know all those like little snippets you see in those travel guides?
Oh, yeah.
We're going way deeper than that today.
Peekaboo.
And our source material this time is a little different.
Okay.
It's almost like we're listening in on a casual conversation about these myths.
Yeah, it's fascinating.
Yeah.
It really is like a raw and unfiltered glimpse into how these stories are discussed and interpreted.
So through that lens, we're going to try to uncover some of the lesser known aspects
Oh,
of
good.
Japanese mythology
Mm-hmm.
that I think even a lot of Japanese people themselves may not be familiar with.
Yeah, that's true.
And get this, in Japanese mythology, gods are measured in pillars.
Yeah, pillars. So, when you think about pillars, they're not just physical structures.
Right.
They represent these fundamental forces, like domains of influence within the cosmos.
I see.
It's a really unique way of understanding the structure of the pantheon.
That's really interesting. Okay, so let's start at the beginning. Japanese mythology tells us that the universe started as just pure chaos, a void from which 5 primordial gods emerged.
These initial gods are interesting. They're not described with gender or form.
Huh.
It's more like they're essences as forces of creation that take center stage. It's
Oh,
a concept you'll find in various creation myths around the world, actually.
I see.
Mm-hmm.
And each of these gods is associated with a pillar representing a specific aspect of creation.
Yeah,
Together, they form the foundation of everything.
right.
Now, after those 5 come 12 more gods appearing in 7 generations.
Okay.
It starts with solo gods,
Mm-hmm.
but then from the 3rd generation onward,
Yeah,
we start to see pairs,
they are.
a male and a female god
But-
for each.
Right. So that shift to pairs introduces this really important concept
Yeah.
of duality and balance, which is a core principle in Japanese thought.
Okay.
Very much in line with the idea of yin and yang,
Right.
where opposing forces aren't in conflict,
Yeah.
but they complement and complete each other.
Right. Okay, so it's not just about creating the world, it's about creating a world that's balanced.
It's
And the most significant pair
yes.
in this divine dance is Izanami and Izanagi,
Yeah.
siblings and spouses, who are tasked with creating the world.
And their union isn't just symbolic, it's literally an act of creation, underscoring the interconnectedness that you see throughout Japanese mythology.
I see.
Yeah.
So imagine the world as a 3-layered structure.
Okay.
Up top, we have Takamagahara, the high heavenly plane where the gods reside.
Mm-hmm.
In the middle, we have Ashihara no Nakatsukuni,
Okay.
the human world.
The human world.
And then at the bottom, you have the underworld,
Okay.
which is referred to as either Nenokuni or Yomi no Kuni, shrouded in mystery.
Interesting. This three-tiered structure actually has parallels in other mythologies too.
Oh, yeah.
For example, Norse mythology depicts the world tree Yggdrasil
Right.
with its roots in the underworld,
Mm-hmm.
its trunk representing the human realm,
Mm-hmm.
and its branches reaching towards the heavens. Yeah. And just like Yggdrasil has a spring called Mimir at its roots,
Oh,
the Japanese underworld features the yellow spring.
wow. So similar, even across vastly different cultures.
It really is. And there's even a connection to the Huangquan in Chinese mythology,
Huh.
another spring associated with the underworld.
Interesting.
Yeah, these recurring motifs point to this universal fascination we have with the cycle of life, death, and rebirth, and the profound symbolism that we attach to
Yeah.
elements like water and trees.
Okay, so now we've got our world-building duo,
Yeah.
Izanami and Izanagi,
Mm-hmm.
standing on a floating bridge above a vast primordial ocean,
Okay.
holding a spear. They plunge it into the water, and as they lift it, the droplets solidify to form the islands of Japan.
Wow.
It's a very powerful image of deliberate creation.
It is. And this ritualistic act reinforces that belief, that actions, especially those imbued with intention and purpose,
Right.
have the power to shape the world around us.
And it doesn't stop there. Izanami and Izanagi continue this ritualistic union, bringing forth spirits of nature, mountains, rivers, everything.
Everything.
What's interesting is that both gods participate in the creation process.
Right. It reinforces that balance of yin and yang that we talked about earlier. This shared responsibility for creation actually makes Japanese mythology quite unique.
Oh.
In a lot of other cultures, creation is solely attributed to a female deity.
Huh.
But here we see this partnership that emphasizes the interdependence of these forces.
But as with any grand creation, there's a cost.
Yes.
Izanami gives birth to the fire god Kagutsuchi,
Mm-hmm.
but his birth is so intense,
Oh.
so fiery that it fatally burns her.
This element of sacrifice is a recurring theme. It speaks to the potential for destruction and loss,
Yeah.
even as life is being brought forth.
So heartbroken, Izanagi journeys to Yomi, the underworld, desperate to bring his wife back.
Mm-hmm.
He finds her, but she's changed. Having consumed the food of Yomi, she is bound to the realm of the dead.
Right. Consuming food from the underworld is another motif found in various mythologies.
I see.
And it represents this crossing of a threshold
Right.
from which there is no return. It symbolizes that irreversible nature of death.
And Izanagi, refusing to accept this, begs Izanami to return with him.
Okay.
She warns him not to look at her,
Mm-hmm.
but curiosity overpowers his promise.
Oh.
Lighting a torch, he is met with a horrifying sight.
Oh, no.
Izanami's body is decaying, covered in maggots, a gruesome image that embodies the transformative power of death.
Right, it's a stark portrayal of the inevitability of decay and the dangers of defying the laws that govern the underworld.
Understandably terrified, Izanagi flees with the hideous creatures of Yomi in hot pursuit.
Oh.
To escape, he throws objects behind him.
Okay.
Grapes, bamboo shoots, even a river,
Wow.
which magically transform into obstacles, showcasing his quick thinking and the mystical power of intention.
It's a thrilling chase scene.
Yeah.
It highlights Izanagi's resourcefulness, and it also underscores the interconnectedness of the natural world and the spiritual realm.
Izanagi barely makes it out, sealing the entrance to Yomi with a giant boulder.
Okay.
Enraged and heartbroken, Izanami vows to kill 1,000 of Izanagi's people every day.
Wow.
Izanagi, in defiance, vows to create 1,500 new life forms daily, ensuring that life triumphs over death.
This exchange solidifies the cycle of life and death
Right.
as this essential law of the universe. And Izanagi's actions demonstrate the enduring power of creation even in the face of loss and darkness.
Now, after this harrowing experience, Izanagi seeks purification. He immerses himself in a river, and as he washes, more gods are born.
This act of purification is so crucial. It emphasizes the concept of spiritual cleansing and renewal, particularly after contact with the realm of the dead. And from this purification ritual,
Yes.
3 incredibly important deities are born.
Amaterasu, the sun goddess,
Yes.
Tsukuyomi, the moon god, and Susanoo, the storm god, merge, forming the core of the Japanese pantheon. Each representing a fundamental force of nature shaping the world as we know it.
And here's where the narrative takes a turn. Susanoo, the storm god.
Okay.
He's about to shake things up. He's impulsive,
Okay.
often causing chaos and disrupting the order that his siblings are trying to maintain.
So he's a bit of a wild card.
He is. He embodies both the creative and destructive potential of nature,
I see.
making him a very fascinating and complex character who will play a pivotal role in this unfolding drama.
This is already so much richer than just like the typical tales I've heard.
Yeah.
Can't wait to see what unfolds.
We'll buckle up Susanoo's adventures.
Okay.
And the ripple effects of his actions are just beginning.
Ooh.
So we've got Amaterasu Tsukuyomi and Susanoo, these 3 powerful deities who represent these fundamental forces of nature. But it sounds like Susanoo's the one that's going to stir the pot a bit.
Yeah, you could say that.
Yeah.
Remember how we mentioned that he embodies both creation and destruction?
Yeah.
Well, Susanoo's actions really highlight that duality.
His banishment from the heavens, it wasn't just some random event.
Right.
It was a direct consequence of his behavior.
What kind of trouble was he causing up in the high heavenly plane?
It wasn't just like harmless pranks. Susanoo went as far as destroying his sister Amaterasu's rice fields and defiling her sacred weaving hall.
Oh, wow.
These acts weren't just about sibling rivalry either.
Right.
They were seen as a disruption of the cosmic order that Amaterasu represented.
Wow, talk about taking sibling rivalry to a whole new level.
Right.
So being cast out to the human world must have been quite a humbling experience.
You'd think so, right?
Yeah.
But Susanoo's banishment actually sets him on what we might call a hero's journey.
Okay.
Imagine yourself suddenly finding yourself in this strange new world, encountering people burdened with grief and fear.
Yeah.
That's exactly what happens when Susanoo comes across this elderly couple who are just overcome with despair.
What's their story?
They tell Susanoo about this terrifying 8-headed serpent, Yamata no Orochi, who demands the sacrifice of one of their daughters every year.
Oh my God.
And tragically, they only have one daughter left, Kushinada Hime.
So not only is he navigating this new world,
Yeah.
But he's immediately confronted with this, like, immense threat,
Right.
this monster that's preying on innocent people.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And Susanoo, being the complex character that he is, he rises to the challenge.
Okay.
He's not just a disruptor.
Right.
He's also capable of great acts of heroism.
So how does he take on this 8-headed serpent?
He uses his cunning. He gets the serpent drunk,
Oh.
lulling it into this vulnerable state.
Okay.
And then with his sword, he slays the beast,
Oh.
revealing a hidden treasure within its tail, the
Uh,
legendary sword Kusanagi.
Wait, Kusanagi, that's one of Japan's 3 sacred treasures.
It is.
It's incredible how this mythical artifact emerges from such a dark and fearsome creature.
That's the beauty of mythology, isn't it? The
Yeah.
discovery of Kusanagi within the serpent, it's not just a plot device.
It's symbolic. It suggests that even amidst destruction and chaos, there's this potential for good to emerge.
Yeah.
It also highlights the importance of courage and ingenuity in overcoming adversity.
So after this heroic feat, you'd think Susanoo would be welcomed back to the heavens with open arms, right?
You'd think so, wouldn't you?
Yeah.
But Susanoo's relationship with his sister Amaterasu is far more complicated than that.
Okay.
He does try to make amends, but their past conflicts have cast a long shadow.
So there's this tension between them, a rivalry that goes beyond just sibling squabbles.
Yes. Their conflict represents this fundamental tension that you see not just in mythology, but in life itself.
Right.
The balance between order and chaos,
Right.
light and darkness.
Right.
Both forces are essential.
Yeah.
A world without chaos lacks dynamism,
Right.
and a world consumed by chaos is unsustainable.
It's like that saying, you need a little rain to make the flowers grow.
Precisely.
Yeah.
And in Japanese mythology, Amaterasu and Susanoo, they embody these opposing yet interconnected forces. Yeah.
Amaterasu, having inherited the leadership role from their father,
Okay.
she views Susanoo with suspicion.
Okay.
She sees him as a threat to the order that she's trying to maintain.
So how does she handle this potential threat from her own brother?
To gauge his intentions, she proposes this rather intriguing challenge, a hostage exchange ritual.
A hostage exchange
Yeah.
just between gods.
Yes. It sounds unusual, doesn't it?
Yeah.
But it's essentially a test of trust and a display of power.
Okay.
They each create deities from the other's possession.
Uh-huh.
It's a symbolic act
I see.
and meant to demonstrate their willingness to reconcile,
Yeah.
but also asserting their own strength at the same time.
This is getting intense. So did it work? Did it ease the tension between them?
Unfortunately, no. The deities that they create actually lead to further conflict, highlighting that deep-seated mistrust and the challenge of bridging the divide between these two powerful forces.
So it kind of backfired a little.
It did. And ultimately, Susanoo is banished back to the human world.
So he's back where he started, exiled from the heavens once again. Is that the end of his story?
Not at all. Even in banishment, Susanoo plays this pivotal role. He encounters a food goddess.
Okay.
And let's just say their interaction leads to the origin of crops.
Okay.
But the details are a little too colorful for polite conversation.
We'll leave that to the imagination.
We will?
So we've got this tension between order and chaos playing out on this grand scale.
Mm-hmm.
But what about the human world? Where does that fit into all of this?
That's where another fascinating figure comes in. We need to shift our focus now to Susanoo's descendant.
Okay.
His great-great-great-great-great-grandson, to be precise.
Wow. Okay.
His name is Okuninushi, originally known as Tsunamuchi.
A descendant of Susanoo, the god of storms and chaos. That sounds like a recipe for trouble.
Not necessarily. You see, Okuninushi is known for his kindness and resilience.
Okay.
He's very different from his tempestuous ancestor.
All right.
Imagine the kindest, most compassionate person you know, and then multiply that by 1,000.
That's a pretty high bar.
It is. That's Okuninushi.
Okay. But you mentioned resilience.
Yes.
What kind of challenges did he face?
Well, he had to contend with his 80 jealous brothers.
Daddy,
80 gods.
That's a lot.
Who are constantly scheming against it.
80 jealous siblings. That's a lot even for a god.
It is. But Okuninushi, with his unwavering kindness and remarkable ability to bounce back from adversity,
Okay.
he eventually becomes the ruler of the human world.
Wow.
And here's a charming detail. He's aided by a white rabbit.
A white rabbit. That's quite a departure from the fierce serpents and powerful deities we've encountered so far.
It is a delightful twist. The white rabbit is a symbol of good fortune in Japanese mythology.
Huh.
Its presence underscores Okuninushi's destiny as this benevolent ruler,
Right.
someone who brings harmony and prosperity to the human world.
I love how this mythology weaves together these grand cosmic forces with these like smaller, more intimate details. It makes it feel so relatable even though we're talking about gods and goddesses.
That's the power of mythology. It speaks to these universal human experiences,
Right.
even as it explores these extraordinary events and larger-than-life characters.
So we have Okuninushi, a descendant of Susanoo, ruling the human world with kindness and wisdom.
Yes.
But I have a feeling Amaterasu up in the high heavenly plane
Well,
might have something to say about that.
we are right to be suspicious. Amaterasu, ever vigilant. She sees Okuninushi's growing influence as a potential threat,
Yeah.
especially given his lineage.
Right.
She can't shake this feeling that chaos might be lurking beneath the surface of his seemingly peaceful reign.
This is getting good. It sounds like we're headed for a celestial showdown.
You could say that
Okay.
Amaterasu decides it's time to reclaim the human world
Okay.
and assert her divine authority. She sends 3 emissaries to negotiate Okuninushi's surrender,
Wow.
setting the stage for this confrontation that will determine the fate of both the human and divine realms.
Okay, now I'm really hooked. What happens next?
Well, that's a story for another time.
So Amaterasu sends her emissaries down to the human world to confront Okuninushi. What
Right.
happens next?
The first 2 emissaries, well, they're captivated by what they see. They see the peace and prosperity
Right.
that Okuninushi has cultivated, and they're reluctant to disrupt it.
So Amaterasu's plan is backfiring. Her own envoys are siding with the descendant of her arch-rival.
It says a lot about the kind of ruler Okuninushi was.
Yeah.
He doesn't achieve power through force or intimidation.
Right.
He inspires loyalty and respect through his actions and his genuine concern for his people.
But surely Amaterasu has a backup plan.
Oh, yeah.
She's not one to give up easily.
You're absolutely right.
Yeah.
She sends a 3rd emissary, Takemi Kazuchi,
Okay.
who is a powerful sword god.
Uh-huh.
He embodies her unwavering will.
I see.
He arrives with a very clear mission to secure Okuninushi's surrender.
So this is where things get a little more forceful.
Yeah.
Is there a battle?
There's a confrontation, but it's not between Takemi Kazuchi and Okuninushi.
Oh.
Instead, Takemi Kazuchi challenges Okuninushi's son,
Okay.
Takemi Nakata,
Yeah.
to a duel.
Wow.
It's the Clash of Titans. A battle that symbolizes that inevitable conflict between the divine and earthly realms.
So it's a battle for dominance,
Yeah.
a struggle for control over the human world.
Yeah.
Who wins?
The outcome is not as straightforward as you might think. Okuninushi, facing defeat,
Okay.
chooses a path of peace and wisdom. He decides to relinquish his rule over the human world,
Okay.
but not without conditions.
What does he ask for? I mean, after all he's done for humanity, he deserves some kind of recognition.
He requests the construction of a grand shrine where he will be honored.
Okay.
And that shrine is believed to be the present-day Izumo Taisha, one of Japan's most important Shinto shrines.
That's amazing.
It is.
It's not about one side conquering the other.
Right.
It's about finding a way for both the divine and the earthly realms to coexist.
Exactly. Okuninushi's peaceful surrender legitimizes Amaterasu's claim to the human world,
Right.
while also ensuring that Okuninushi's contributions are remembered and revered.
That's a really interesting point.
It's a powerful example of how seemingly opposing forces
Yeah.
can ultimately complement and enrich each other.
So with Okuninushi stepping aside, does that mark the beginning of Amaterasu's like direct rule over the human world?
Not quite. She chooses to send her grandson, Nigi,
Okay.
to rule in her stead.
Okay.
This event is known as the Descent of the Heavenly Grandson, and it marks a pivotal transition in Japanese mythology.
Oh, let's see.
It establishes that divine mandate of the imperial line,
Right.
linking the rulers of Japan to this celestial lineage.
So this is where myth and history kind of intertwine.
They do.
We're seeing the foundations of Japanese imperial tradition being laid out in this story.
Exactly. And Nigi's arrival in the human world is not without its own drama.
Oh.
He needs a wife, of course, and he encounters 2 sisters,
Okay.
Konohana Sakuhime,
Okay.
who is renowned for her beauty,
Mm-hmm.
and Iwanaga-hime, her older sister.
Okay.
Their father offers both to Ninigi, but he chooses Konohana Sakuhime, captivated by her beauty.
He goes for the beauty.
He does. And this choice carries some pretty profound implications.
What do you mean?
Konohana Sakuyahime represents beauty and transience,
Okay.
while her sister represents longevity and endurance.
Ah.
Ninigi's preference for beauty sets a precedent for humanity, a life filled with beauty, but also limited by mortality.
It's like choosing a cherry blossom over a mighty oak.
It is.
Yeah.
It's a reminder that even in a world shaped by gods and goddesses, Life is fleeting and precious.
And that choice echoes through generations, culminating in the lineage that leads to Japan's first emperor, Emperor Jimmu.
Yeah,
It's also intricately woven together.
it is.
Do we know how these stories were preserved? Is there a written record?
Yes, there is. Much of what we know about Japanese mythology is compiled in the Kojiki records of ancient matters.
The Kojiki, I've heard of it.
Yeah, it's a fascinating document.
Yeah.
It's written using Chinese characters to represent Japanese sounds,
Ah,
so the meanings can be a bit ambiguous at times.
I see.
It's like peering through a mist-shrouded window into the past,
No.
trying to decipher the whispers of ancient voices.
That sounds like quite a challenge for historians and scholars.
It is,
Yeah,
but it makes it all the more intriguing.
absolutely. And speaking of intriguing,
Yeah.
there's one detail about the Kojiki that I find particularly fascinating. For all its detailed descriptions of mountains and their spiritual significance,
Yeah.
it makes no mention of Mount Fuji.
I know. Isn't that interesting?
That's crazy. Mount Fuji is such an iconic symbol of Japan.
It is.
I mean, it seems almost impossible to imagine Japanese culture without it.
It's a perplexing omission. Some scholars believe that Mount Fuji's prominence in Japanese mythology emerged after the Kojiki was compiled, perhaps through folklore and cultural practices that developed over time.
So its significance grew organically, almost like a whisper that turned into a roar,
Yeah.
eventually eclipsing other mountains mentioned in the Kojiki.
It's a reminder that even ancient texts are not static. They evolve alongside the cultures that they represent.
This has been so much richer and more complex than I ever imagined.
It really is.
It makes you wonder what other stories and beliefs might be out there,
Yeah.
either lost to time or waiting to be rediscovered.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And it raises another important point.
What's that?
Given the richness of this mythology, you'd think it would be common knowledge in Japan.
You would assume so.
But surprisingly, that's not the case.
Really? Why not?
During the post-World War II American occupation, Shinto mythology was deliberately removed from school textbooks.
Oh, wow. So an entire generation grew up without this foundational element of their cultural heritage.
They did. It makes you think about the fragility of culture,
Yeah.
how easily it can be disrupted or even erased.
It does. It makes our deep dive into Japanese mythology all the more meaningful, I think.
I agree.
We're not just exploring ancient stories,
Right.
but we're engaging with this living heritage that continues to shape Japanese culture and identity.
And as we conclude our exploration, I'm struck by how universal these themes are. The struggle between order and chaos, the cyclical nature of life and death, the enduring power of love and sacrifice. These are stories that resonate across cultures and time.
Right.
They remind us of our shared humanity and the power of mythology to illuminate the mysteries of existence.
We started this deep dive saying that we were going to explore lesser-known aspects of Japanese mythology. I think it's safe to say we did that.
I think so.
And what's even more remarkable is that these myths aren't just ancient tales.
Right.
They're reflections of human nature and our eternal quest for meaning.
And as with any good myth, we're left with more questions than answers.
We are.
But perhaps that's the point. Myths aren't meant to be definitive answers.
Right.
They're invitations to explore, to question,
Yeah.
to find our own meaning in the stories that have been passed down through generations.
So as we emerge from this deep dive, we invite you, our listeners, to continue exploring. Delve deeper into the world of Japanese mythology. Read the Kojiki.
Yeah.
Discover the hidden stories within its pages.
Yeah.
Who knows, maybe you'll uncover a new perspective, a new interpretation that adds another layer of richness to this timeless tapestry of myth and legend.
And as we wrap up,
Yeah.
I'd like to leave our listeners with a thought.
Okay.
The journey of discovery never truly ends.
That's true.
And there's an old Japanese proverb that says, even monkeys fall from trees.
Huh.
Even the most sure-footed among us can stumble.
Right.
And sometimes it's in those moments of vulnerability that we discover new truths
Yeah.
and forge new paths.
I like that.
So keep exploring,
Yes.
keep questioning, and most importantly, keep an open mind.
Great advice.